Hey everybody, Average Picker here. Yeah, not much lock picking in this video. However, my good friend, she said that she got really interested when she heard me rambling about disaster relief stuff and wanted to hear more of that. And Paola, over in Italy, I really swear I mispronounced her name. I know it's like Paula. It's almost like Paula, I believe. But she said she likes my little rambles because it feels like having a little conversation. So I thought we would do a little disaster ramble. To honor Paula, I have made myself a 2 a.m. espresso. So here we go, right? 2 a.m. Nothing like a little espresso. And I figured I would tell you guys more about like the 26 hours I spent in the emergency management center downtown in their little bunker. This would have been back about 2008 when a tornado went through downtown Atlanta. So yeah, nothing to do really with picking. Little tiny bit to do with security, I suppose, there, because there's a little security lesson in there. And that's kind of it. Maybe in a broader scheme, it could be related to some stuff going on currently. But yeah, and not much of a comical punchline or anything to it. It's not a sad story either. So let's do that. So yeah, at the time I was with Red Cross, and I was qualified for pretty much almost every position they had, I think, but feeding. And it's very interesting. If you've never volunteered with them, it's interesting because they have this real ebb and flow to their kind of hierarchy and authority and how everything goes up. So you can be a person's, you can be someone's boss on one job, and then you go out and they become your boss on a different job, just depending on who's qualified for what. So at the time I was not, I was just on call in general for disaster. I was not serving as a captain of one of the disaster response teams. That would have been the next week from there. But yeah, so I'm watching a movie. It's pretty late. I'm watching a movie with my buddy, and his phone rings, and it's his girlfriend. And she says, a tornado just went through downtown Atlanta. And I'm like, there's no way a tornado went through downtown. For one, it's downtown. Tornadoes don't do that. And number two, if it did, my phone would be ringing off the hook. And of course, I don't think the words were even out of my mouth completely. And my phone started going off with multiple incidences occurring. So one of those calls, though, was from the captain of the disaster action team. And he asked me if I wanted to go downtown. He said, under one of the municipal buildings, there's a bunker. And if I wanted to go down there and operate with the emergency response units there. I'd never done this before. I had no idea where this place was. I didn't even know it existed. Bunker is a little bit of the wrong word for it. Maybe think of a slightly reinforced basement office building, I guess. Conference room and a couple offices, I guess, is probably a better way to think about it. There was no big blast doors or anything like that. But yeah, he gave me directions, and I got down there, and you had to go through down to the bottom level of this parking garage and through this side door. If we're going to relate it into security a little, we kept that side door open at least the whole time I was there, because there was enough of us under there that smoked, and we had to go out that door to smoke, that we just kept it propped open, so anyone could have really walked in. So I went down there. The main room that we operated in was pretty cool. I mean, you basically had these rows of long tables, all with computer stations and stuff on them, and then literally projected up in front of you was the big board, right? It made me laugh as soon as I walked in, because it reminded me of Dr. Strangelove. I just wanted to go, I've seen a big board! But everyone from different agencies all has an assigned position. So I had to figure out where the Red Cross one was. No problem. Discovered real quick I didn't have a login for the computer. Apparently you're supposed to have a login when you showed up, and I did not have one, nor had the captain given me one. And this is going to come back later in the story. So just keep that in mind. I did not have a login. So the premise of how this works, I think, is probably best explained with the first example, I guess, that I had. And just to give you an idea of how everything kind of coordinates. So one of the first calls we had, there was a sort of retirement assisted living facility that had a fire from the damage of the tornado and stuff. I don't know if it was electrical, not sure what caused it, but it had a fire. And I forget, it was 60 to 80 residents, I think. They all had to be evacuated. So we had a disaster response team on the way there, but we realized really quickly this was bigger than what two people can handle, because that's your typical kind of team is two people, and we're going to have to start activating sheltering probably. And we knew we also had multiple calls coming in. It takes a little bit to get the shelter set up though, so we had the shelter people. They were kind of going into standby mode, I guess. So they're going out, they're getting the shelter trailers ready, they're double checking the inventory, that kind of thing, but they're holding until we know what locations to tell them to go to. But with this assisted living facility, something had to be done. And there's also a lot of question about, well, because they're going to have medical needs, they're going to have, some of them are going to have disability needs and requirements that are going to have to be met, medications, things like that. So we didn't really have a facility ready to accept those kind of people. And so this is where the whole emergency operations center thing kind of works. So what you end up doing is going to all these different groups and coordinating. So there's there was a representative there from Parks and Recreation. So I went to her, explained what the situation was, asked if they had a facility that could take 60 to 80 people living in an assisted living facility. And it turned out they had 3 places that they could do. And this would all have been prearranged, contracted stuff, just in case something like this happens. Most cities have a plan like this. But the next thing we had to know was, are these facilities even available? Do they even have power? Because we're still getting reports in. Georgia Power's got a unit there, and they're talking about what areas are down and all this, but we don't know for sure on these 3. So we go to the Georgia Power rep. We find out 2 of the places do not have power. The 3rd one does. Awesome. So now we've got to know, can we get from point A, where the assisted living facility is, to that center to shelter these people? And so you go to the reps for the fire department and for the police department. Is the path clear? What do you know of the road conditions and everything? Is it safe to travel? It is. So awesome. So now we need to move these people, right? And so this whole time this is going on at the response center, our agents are in the field and they're getting everybody's names and stuff, and they're finding out, specific needs maybe of individual clients and things like that. It's also pouring rain at this point, because when the tornado hit, they hit with storms. So they were in the middle of a thunderstorm doing most of this work, very likely just under umbrellas and trees and stuff. Red Cross is weird. You go out, you've got to be able to work like you're set up at an office, anywhere from a comfortable living room to out in the rain or on a bus even. So in the operations center, we go to MARTA, and that's kind of our bus and rail line, I guess, group here. So we go to MARTA and we find out, do you have buses that are available that you can come pick these residents up and take them to the shelter? And they do, of course. So that guy makes the contact with those bus drivers. They get the address of where they need to go. They go and pick up the residents. Our shelter, or our response crews, tag along with them, finishing up the paperwork and things like that. So by the time they arrive at this rec center, we at least have everybody's names and things like that. And we can finish the paperwork later. We don't have to finish it that night. We can, bring in family services and kind of take care of things. But the important thing is we got these 80 people moved to this location, all right, pretty promptly, I would say. That gives them a place for that night, and then we can come in, with, like I said, family services and finish up all their paperwork, figure out all their needs, contact other family members, things like that. So that's the gist of it. That's how the emergency communication centers kind of work. And pretty much every major city, county, and state has these, and they just keep scaling up, basically depending on the size of the disaster. So this was a city disaster, so we were only needing the city one. Had it really been big, the county one would have been kind of the main one. They would have gotten the main information. It would have trickled down to our city one and then gone out to everyone from there. So same with the state. If you have a statewide disaster, you've got your state emergency response area. It trickles out to your counties, and your counties trickle out down to your cities, and all the information just kind of flows up and down this pipeline. And yeah, I mean, there's going to be a delay and stuff, but it's okay. So I promised I would tie this in a little bit with security. So besides that door never shutting, so I was under this bunker, for about 26 hours, I think. And I remember when it rolled over to 24 hours, I was like, okay, I'm probably going to be down here for 48 hours at this point. The captain had told me to bring some snacks and stuff. They did have some as well. But he said just prepare to be comfortable and down there for a while. And so yeah, when 26 hours hit, I was like, okay, there's a good chance I'm going to be down here, either another 10 hours or another 24 hours before I get relieved. And I did start to wonder, does anyone from the Red Cross even know I'm here? Because nobody would have thought that I would be there, right? Because I'd never done it before and I wasn't really qualified for it. Everything was going smoothly. I had it all going fine, but that was only because I had spent so many years doing this and I understood the Red Cross structure, that I was able to kind of use that knowledge to fill in the gaps of everything else that I needed to do. So, like I said, they have these desks and these rows of computers. What I didn't know, everybody was supposed to be using the computers. You come in, you sit down, you log in with your specific login. That gives you kind of this unique color and emergency coding numbers and things. And so all your requests, you enter on the computer and it projects onto the big board. And so that way, if someone happens to know some side information or something that can help fulfill your request, they can chime in. So I showed you how I had to kind of go to all these different people and kind of negotiate what was happening. In the perfect world, that would have all been up on the computer board, and maybe somebody, from like Public Works or something, might have known something and said, oh no, you know what? There's no water at that facility. I just happen to know that it just got cut off or something, they would, what's supposed to happen is they would add that information in, and so you would just be getting all of this up on the board, and everybody is able to kind of chime in and respond to all the different requests and needs that are coming in, as opposed to going around to people. But nobody uses the computers, right? I mean, millions and millions of dollars went into building this thing, and nobody was using the computers at all. Everything was done by going up and basically doing a handshake, and meeting the person. So after about 24, 25 hours, though, they decided we were going to get with protocol, 100% with protocol. Everyone has to be logged into their machines. And so everyone started to settle in. A lot of people just don't like to use the machines because some of them are just retired volunteers. I mean, there's a technology pushback, I guess, or kind of rejection of the technology a little bit. So everyone was reluctantly doing it. And I didn't have a login. And so they were working on that because they couldn't figure out why I couldn't get into the computer system. At the 25-ish hour mark, they realized why I couldn't get in. Apparently, you weren't just supposed to have gone through some training for this. You were also supposed to have gone through a background check and some other security checks to get in there. Now, of course, when I got there, I just walked in. I had my Red Cross badge on. I just walked in, shook hands with some people, set my backpack down, got to work. So yeah, no checks at all. It was not until they were trying to assign me a thing and they realized I didn't have one. And it was because everyone that's passed all the checks to be down there, they have all been provided a unique ID that you're not allowed to share. So yeah, it took them about 25 hours, and they wanted to boot me out, but they couldn't, right? Because I'm the only rep there. So yeah, a lot of phone calls were made, and about the 26-hour mark, another manager came in to relieve me. So, but it was weird being down there too, because after the tornado hit, there was just these like rolls of thunderstorms coming in. I mean, there was at least 8 other huge storm fronts that just kind of rolled right in behind it. And we had, one of the TVs had radar on it, and and it's on my neighborhood, and I'm watching the worst of the storms like roll across my house, and I'm just like, need to be there. I need to be there. And it's weird because you're perfectly safe where you are, but it's this incredible helpless feeling, even though if you were at your house, there's not a thing you could do. I mean, it's not a safe place to be. But in my head, I'm just like, I need to be there. That's where I need to be. So it's an interesting little feeling. So I don't know how long this video is running, but it's a ramble, right? So we can keep rambling a little bit. And I know a couple people are curious about what I said, that I could make a few comments about this pandemic thing. I'm going to try to keep this completely apolitical. I mean, and my experience has only been working on up to state-wide disasters. And natural disasters, not something like biological pandemic sort of thing. Though a lot of the response is kind of similar. I mean, I've been through, at least at the time, I had been through the pandemic courses, and a lot of the stuff, there was changes and shifts in how like you behave and things in responding. The information was kind of there. So I'm no expert on pandemic. Let's just get that out of the way. So I think the military has a saying, and it echoed through Red Cross all the time, hurry up and wait. And there is a lot of that. There's a lot of hurry up and wait. And especially when you're in the field, things don't happen as quickly as you feel like they should be. You feel like you make a call and you should have an answer within 30 seconds, 5 minutes, and anything over 10, you're just like, you're out there like going, oh, what's going on? What's going on? I'm losing time. I'm losing time. You're just, like that. But once you've done it for a while, you kind of learn to calm that down a little bit, and you realize there is an information. That information is flowing. That information is going to get shared, right? You learn to ignore rumors, especially in sheltering situations. Rumors will fly all over the place, and some of them will sound completely legitimate. They will sound completely doable. No reason to think it's bad information, but you just learn to ignore that, and you go, I know how the system is supposed to work. I know the channels the information is going to come down, and I know we're going to get it. It's not even we're going to get it on a need-to-know basis. You're going to get that information, and you're going to get the information you need, and it's going to be one single coherent message. So if I go from shelter A to shelter B, and I talk to people there, they're going to have the exact same facts that I have, right? And you learn to trust that system, and for good reason. It works, and you stick to it. It doesn't go bad. Some stuff may shift it a little bit. You could be in the field and realize, oh, I know what they're making a decision on. Let me give them this little other bit of information, and it works. You call who you're supposed to call, and that information does get up there. It gets considered, and ultimately you can often see it rolled into the response you get. So it does work, and you do trust it, and it's nice because you're not chasing down all these little tidbits, trying to figure out what's true, what's not true, what's this, what's that. Everyone's got one message. You're sticking to it. You're able to tell people over here exactly what you're telling the people over here, and it's correct information. So that only works when that whole structure is intact. And what I see on this, and again, like I said, I'm not a pandemic expert. This feels like that structure is completely helter-skelter. If you watch, even just during a press conference, like the information is kind of conflicting with itself. Some people seem to be surprised about something that might be said. There's definitely there is a breakdown in that emergency communication protocol. I don't even know. I think in my mind, FEMA would be the ones taking control of this right now from Health and Human Services. I don't think we've really heard any messaging from Health and Human Services, but they still seem to be leading the charge. FEMA seems to be kind of running alongside them somehow. I know the vice president got, he was supposed to be like the main voice of information or something. not seen a whole lot of him being that singular message of doling out information. I don't understand. I'm trying not to name names. I don't want to get political. I don't understand what the son-in-law's position is. You know, if the VP is messaging, what's the son-in-law doing? I don't know. And then why do we have all these other people? And where's the CDC's role in it? Like, what is missing is you should be able to see a very clear definition of how this stuff, how the information is flowing, and I don't see any clear thing. And I know a few days ago they released this poster, and it was like the 30-day poster or something, right? And it's like, don't send your kids to school if they're sick. Most of the schools are shut down at this point, man. You know, and it's talking about like washing hands and keeping distance, and that's all good information. But I'm like, this is the stuff that should have been released in January. I mean, this is the basic framework thing that you say, hey, here's our message. There's this thing coming potentially, you know, we're dealing with it. We're working on it. You know, it could get bad. We're going to let you know, blah, 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 whatever. One unified message where you don't terrify everybody, obviously, but you give out, hey, here's the hard truth of it, but don't worry, we've got a plan. Put some faith in the plan, right? Well, that's weird. My hands are way too close to the camera for that. And that 30-day poster is part of it. I mean, that's basic messaging. We would hand out things like that to communities before we even had disasters hit areas. That was, I mean, one of the things we do is disaster education. And you have that almost that exact same information in it that you're giving out to residents of, you know, at apartments or community meetings and things like that, to explain what to do. And that's before there's anything even that's happened. I mean, that's a really early messaging thing. And when you see something like that come out this late, it makes you like, oh man, there's some kind of infrastructure, communication infrastructure breakdown. That's what it feels like to me. And that's what everything I see seems to keep echoing. And it does drive me a little crazy because I know how good when it all works, what it can be like. Now, again, I'm not an expert in pandemics, so I don't understand. I don't know quite where the hospital messaging is supposed to come in from necessarily compared to where it could be at this point. You know, I don't. And then I mean, the governors are usually just, they're usually at these communication centers as well, or they're getting their information from those centers. And they're kind of helping to unify the message. And then they come out, they're kind of the voice, I guess, or the front man typically for their state. But they may bring other people in to help talk or explain about something. But that's kind of your state voice. But that information's not coming, it's not coming down to them. It's kind of coming sideways into them, if that makes sense. And the information that's coming to them of what to say is coming from, you know, kind of a top-down thing, where this feels like it's just, you know, and then you've just got people going, I don't know, I'm just gonna do an interview on TV and see if that gets me some response, which isn't the way it's supposed to go at all. And that's a little freaky, you know. So stay safe, do the best you can. You know, it's a weird disaster, like I've said before, because there's no physical damage outside. But you know, all we can do is the best we can do, and deal with it as we can. So yeah, anyway, guys, that's probably a pretty long ramble. Paola, I hope you're Paola. I think it's Paola. It's Italian though. I'm wanting to over pronunciate some part of your name because it's Italian. I hope you're doing well. It's completely understandable you haven't done a lockpick video. But yeah, I hope you're doing okay. I hope everything's going to improve, but I hope it improves more rapidly than you expect it to. So yeah, keep yourself safe. And Sami, hope you enjoyed this little disaster ramble. Maybe I'll come back and do another one. I've got so many stories. Some of them I don't know if I should tell. There's a few. They're questionable just because I don't want to damage some organizations that do some fantastic work. I know some really bad stories about some groups, but they're outliers. It's not. It's just your organization can be fantastic, but if you have just one rogue volunteer who's a little bit nuts, it can kind of make everything look a little bad. So yeah. Anyway, there's a little teaser. Right now, I've got to tell the story. So, like I said, take care of yourselves, everybody. Have a good one.